Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank Güven Çatak and Murat Germen for their invitation. I'm very excited and honored to be a part of this conference with all these great minds here. And I want to thank you to our viewers all around the world joining us today from their homes. This is normally a 1 hour plus keynote, but I will try to give an overview of my work and my interests in the next 45 minutes and how the use of technology helped the evolution of my creative expression. I'm not going to talk about all the projects in detail, but you can go to my website. You can see the link over here somewhere and read all about the works you're going to see here and more of my recent works. So, as a visual artist for almost a decade now, I've been working with emerging new media technologies in order to create immersive audiovisual works that pushes the boundaries of the traditional narratives of art, cinema, and music. These projects sometimes took place as a large-scale projection installations in the public, sometimes within geodesic dome structures, sometimes as a virtual reality headset or as a 3D printed sculpture. I've been very fortunate to be involved in interdisciplinary collaborations with many disciplines like scientists, architects, neuroscientists, musicians, wellness teachers. So I'm always looking forward to expand my interface with my reality through such dialogues. I've experienced how these new media can be very powerful to raise public awareness on the vital matters of our time. As our daily lives are surrounded by digital technologies exponentially, we're moving toward living more and more in the digital worlds. Our jobs, our emotions, our friendships, our art, everything is performed more and more in this digital realms. In some cases, these are a cool extension of our lives, but sometimes they're out of necessity, just like this virtual conference we are having right now, thanks to these technologies. So the digital displays are becoming larger and larger, and they're surrounding us more and more with more an endless flow of information. And they're becoming an integrated part of our public spaces and our architecture. And we are also spending a significant amount of time looking at displays in our homes and workplaces. And soon, with new AR technologies, distinction between the physical space and the digital reality will begin to really blur. And this is already happening right now. And our way of interfacing with the digital world will be overlapped with our peripheral daily visions in 3 dimensions with new interfaces. So, as artists and designers, we have the chance to be the architects of this new future and decide how the aesthetics and the interaction between the digital and the physical world are going to take place. My work is heavily inspired by the nature, and this happens to many of us working in this field. I view the nature as the greatest artwork ever, emerged through the fundamental forces that holds our universe and ecosystems together. As we understand our planet deeper, we see emergent properties everywhere, from the formation of rocks to flocking of birds or a swarm of fish, and how our cities and social structures form themselves. We can perceive these invisible principles that shape and connect all these different processes. And these processes themselves are the biggest source of inspiration for me, as I love mimicking nature in order to create new virtual worlds and see what is possible beyond what we can perceive through our senses. I see the role of artists and the use of emerging technologies are vital to make this invisible intelligence more visible and spreading it to the global network as wide as possible so that we can sharpen our senses and our minds to understand better what our places in the universe. Over the last 10 years, projection mapping or video mapping became a popular technique for art and commercial projects. It is also called these days projected AR or spatial augmented reality. With projection mapping, we can bring life to any irregular surface by usually using optical illusions, light and shadow manipulations, and animating the actual geometry of an architecture or a space. One of my exciting projection mapping projects was in 2014 in Prague. This is called Emerge. It is an architectural piece that was commissioned for the second edition of Signal Light Festival in Prague. The performance site here, Miknu Palace, is one of the largest palaces in Prague from 1800s. This was a collaboration with Nerdworking and Cosmos. And Signal Festival is one of the largest showcase of light and art and emerging technologies in the Czech Republic. It is also one of the most visited cultural events. The second edition I was involved, it was visited by over 400,000 people in 4 days. The interesting side of this project for me was it was like a rock concert experience. Several thousands of people flooded each time this piece was presented during the night, and this was a dark parking area in front of the building, and the sound system was really powerful. So for me, it was really interesting to observe the reactions of a large audience into certain parts of the piece. Each time it was seen by a different crowd, and it made me think more about why those specific parts were reacted more by the audiences, and I wanted to develop my next pieces according to that real-time feedback I was having from the crowd. And this was also a 3D presentation with anaglyph glasses, so audiences were able to experience this piece in 3D. And when you consider the size of the architecture, which is like 4 times larger than an IMAX screen, the depth and the 3D experience was really spectacular. And I think this was a really nice example of how these type of presentations can make an intervention in the public spaces. The second projection mapping piece I want to share is called Sim Nebula. It is a large collaboration that involves Signal Productions in Czech Republic and 11 different international artists from all over the world. And this was a really immersive experience because all the different facades of this concert hall called Ridolfinum in Prague was projection mapped by 10 or 12 large-scale projectors. So, and also a 45-minute experience was accompanied by the Czech Philharmonic Orchestra. They performed classical pieces of the famous Czech composers. And when you're inside a space, it was like a realistic version of a VR experience because the ceiling, the front wall, the side walls, wherever you looked was enhanced with these visuals that were accompanying to the concert performance. 5 years ago, I received a Fulbright scholarship, which brought me to the United States. And since then, my time in San Francisco enabled me to focus fully on my art practice and experiment with new media. As I kept producing my original content, I had so many international showcase opportunities in festivals, galleries, museums, interdisciplinary collaborations with artists, and artist residencies. After some of these large scale projection mapping projects, I began to focus more on the gallery setting. Unfold series, which you might seen in the previous edition of Eurasia Graphics Conference, was a digital form experiment which was inspired by these emergent organic forms. This work has become a seed of my own art as a self-organizing system of its own. I used an animated projection content that brought life to this 3D sculptural form, and use of 3D simulated light around the sculpture created an added depth, which we can't really achieve with an ordinary finite print. And this piece inspired the concepts behind my following artworks later and became an aesthetic foundation for them. Um, Another smaller scale gallery piece here is called Unifield. This was one of my first digital fabrication experiments. I used a laser cutter to physically produce this very detailed, complex geometric form. And like the unfold print you've seen before, I used similar projection mapping techniques on this form. And it became like a kinetic sculpture using light. Another smaller scale gallery piece was called iPad. I used the geodesic dome that I built for this installation, and this one focused on the human impact on nature. Next piece is called Ray Trace. This is a site-specific installation, and this was particularly interesting because I created a form first for this, and then I applied this form on the wall by using tapes. And I created this tape mural, and then I was able to bring this form into 3 dimensions by adding a volume through light and shadow manipulations on this form. And this was really interesting for me. This was a 40 feet wide tessellated piece, and when you were standing there, we used three 20K projectors, which is a really powerful light on this form, and it really looks like there was this 3D form hanging on the wall. After working on so many different projection mapping projects you've seen here, where I began to augment physical with the digital content, I started expanding my interest to geodesic domes and virtual and augmented reality, and also using digital fabrication on this large-scale architectural displays. In June 2015, right before I moved to San Francisco for my master's studies, I've been invited to Immersion and Experience Conference in Montreal, in Canada, with a group of friends from Turkey called Ouch. And we presented this dome piece at the conference. I visited Buckminster Fuller's biosphere during that symposium, and then his daughter Allegra Fuller, who is also a scholar, gave us an amazing speech about her father's vision under this beautiful dome structure during a beautiful sunset. And that was a really inspiring moment for me. The inventor of the geodesic dome structure, Buckminster Fuller, has been a very inspirational figure for me, as he was an architect, system theorist, designer, and a futurist. When I became interested in creating an audiovisual piece for a dome, his holistic approach to form and geometrical relationship in the nature, and his idea of synergetics, improving the quality of human experience through efficiency, and how he sees this planet as a spaceship. So during my master's studies, this book called Expanded Cinema by media theorist and scholar Gene Youngblood became a really cool source material for me. Even though this was written 50 years ago, Gene Youngblood predicted the times we're living in right now. In this book, he was talking about how the future of cinematic experiences will be more non-linear and more abstract. It's going to use holographic displays. There's going to be more of a fusion of music and abstraction. So the result of this research was this piece called Morphogenesis, which was my first piece I have created for domes and virtual reality at the same time. Morphogenesis literally means in Greek the creation, the beginning of the shape. So it describes this biological process that causes an organism to develop its shape by following these geometrical principles. So as a full dome and virtual reality piece, Morphogenesis is an audiovisual journey through different geometrical spaces, and it invites viewer to this sensational world of where space becomes an infinity. And this was particularly interesting for me. This was the first time I was creating a fully immersive experience for spherical displays. And it allowed me to creating this kind of content called ECOI Rectangular, a 360 visual content, allowed me to present this piece in variety of displays like domes, VR headsets, at the same time as a panoramic projection installation as well. It's been widely exhibited around the world in festivals and media art museums and galleries. And this was also an inspiring moment for me to understand the power of the digital media, and also how remote working as an artist in this field can really work out, because I was able to send a Google Drive link to a festival in Japan without really physically going there and installing the piece. But at the same time, I was also able to exhibit this piece in another place in Spain or United States. So it really made me think more and more about utilizing the digital international network to present these kind of pieces. Another dome project I had a chance to work on was this exterior dome projection. I worked for some time with San Francisco-based company called Obscura Digital. They are specialized in creating large dome experiences and architectural experiences. Several years ago, Obscura was acquired by MSG, which is Madison Square Garden. They have the largest venues in the United States for sports events, concerts, all kinds of entertainment experiences. And Obscura Digital, after they were acquired, they started to completely focus on this concept called MSG Sphere, which they are building right now in Las Vegas, and it's going to be built in different cities around the world as well. They're seeing this as the future of entertainment, and this is going to be a gigantic dome structure. It's going to be all LED screens inside the dome and outside the dome as well. And they're going to host nearly 20,000 people in this place, and it's going to host fully immersive live concerts, performances, screenings, and sports events in this future venue. What I did for this project was I created content for the first presentation of this dome concept. And the interesting part for this was just like a VR experience, I again created this 360 quadrectangular content, and it's been projected outside of the dome. So on that dome, we were able to rotate the content, this 360 content. So it was possible from all the different angles of the dome structure. And when this kind of really large spherical content is displayed on this large surfaces, when you're there in person, it really does you something special. It feels like all the world is moving around you, and it is a very holographic-like experience. Another cool collaboration with Obscura Digital, while I was working with Obscura Digital, was this piece called Unseen Stars, which was commissioned by General Electric. And this was one of the largest public presentations I was involved in. I was the art director of this project, and working with GE and BBDO New York, we created this 9 minutes projection installation celebrating 12 female pioneering scientists by activating the celestial ceiling mural on the historic Grand Central Terminal in New York.
Grand Central is known for the constellations on its ceiling depicting mythical heroes. We decided to transform them. Instead, we wanted to depict real heroes, women scientists to look up to.
The famous celestial ceiling at Grand Central Terminal getting a little transformation this week.
It's called The Unseen Stars. General Electric sponsoring the project. It features 12 notable women, scientists and engineers.
These unseen stars are finding cures for cancer and developing new paths for clean energy. The project was part of GE's Balance the Equation initiative, their goal of hiring 20,000 women by 2020. People quickly shared the show, treating these women like the heroes that they are. The Unseen Stars honored female scientists whose ideas changed the world and inspired future generations to follow in their footsteps.
One of the highlights of my experiences in San Francisco was Autodesk Pier 9 Artist Residency. In 2017, I had the chance to work there. Pier 9 workshop has been built by Autodesk, and it's focusing on the future of making things. And they have created this state-of-the-art digital fabrication lab that has large-scale CNC machines, 3D printers, laser cutters, robotics, electronics labs. It is a workshop that you can literally build a car. It has all that kind of equipment over there. And in their artist residency program, they just give you access to that workshop, and they just want you to make cool things using their machinery in the workshop. So this was a really cool opportunity for me to build the next step of the VR experience I was interested in building. For my graduation project in my master's, I wanted to create a VR piece that was involving some physical interaction and also using the space that the VR experience was built for. So this was my way of combining all the different experiences and physical interaction, digital fabrication techniques, VR, and immersive media work you've seen in the previous works. And I focused on this reality virtuality continuum. And the result was this piece called Mediated Virtuality. I mostly focused on bringing my form ideas into physical space by using 3D printing techniques, and I generated these forms that was inspired by the previous pieces, the biology, abstraction, sculptural forms, and I also used different particle simulations to create more generative spaces for the VR experience. This was one of the first experiments using HTC Vive trackers. And before starting building my physical sculptures, I attached this Vive tracker on a banana, and I created this test experience called Banana Brush. So I was able to use the fruit as a tool to draw um, particles inside the VR space. And after the pieces were complete, I attached Vive trackers on these physical sculptures. I also used the leap motion sensor to track my hand gestures, because something I realized when using these physical forms inside the VR, even though you see the form and they're in the real space with the sculpture, and in VR they are overlapping, if you don't see your hands, something is missing in that interaction. So involving leap motion before any other hand tracking was possible in 2017 in VR really helped me. And I placed this table. I installed my sculptures with the Vive sensors on them, and I also placed different prints in this room where I exhibited the piece. So this was something I've been testing. When you're experiencing VR pieces, you usually wait a long line and you don't have any idea, any indication of what is really going on inside the VR. Maybe sometimes people are using small screens for that. What I wanted to do, I wanted to bring that VR experience into the physical space. So before you dive into the experience, you still have this reference point of the architectural space, forms, prints in the wall. So you're already inside the experience, and when you put the VR headset on, you have another layer of experience. You are completely surrounded by this digital space, but you still have similar indications of the space you're in. So this was my way of attempting to really blur the boundaries between physical and digital spaces. So after spending time focusing more on the physical forms and learning more about material and how to produce physical pieces by using digital fabrication tools and software, I wanted to go back to my digital content creation, where I really like to produce these kind of pieces, because you can add motions that it is impossible in the physical space. And something I realized during my residency in Autodesk was I'm waiting 80 hours to print a 3D piece, and then what really lives after I produce that piece is a photograph. And that photograph was something I was able to mimic by using photorealistic rendering techniques like Octane Render in Cinema 4D. And then I wanted to bring that inspiration this time from the physical space, but I wanted to produce more sculptural, kinetic sculptural ideas without any limitations of the physical space, like gravity or material costs or waiting 80 hours for a printing time. So Multiverse series was that reactionary experiment after spending so much time with those physical pieces. And with this series, I wanted to really focus on photorealistic rendering and working with different materials in 3D. And I was bringing these sculptural pieces into like a museum space, and I was exploring the idea of how the future of arts in the museum can look like when we have this materials that are doing impossible things that isn't possible yet, but maybe with holographic displays or maybe new material technologies, in the future we will be able to create this kind of intersecting complex materials in really large scales. And I kept on doing different forms, and I shared these ideas on social media every day. I really opened my creation process to the public, so I was able to receive real-time feedback for the pieces I was creating every day. And I was really analyzing the feedback, why people responded to this particular piece more. Is it the color? Is it the shape? Is it the sound? Is it the scale? So I crowdsourced my inspiration or feedback process during this experiment, and I came up with a different idea every day. So there was this natural progression over the months, and by responding in this way to the public feedback, I received really interesting results on my Facebook page and Instagram, and I really tried to understand this viral effect, why people are responding to these kind of hypnotizing um, CG renders, and what is more interesting, what is more appealing. And I discovered, for me, it became another area of blurring the boundaries between physical and digital by using these type of realistic rendering techniques. And without any limitations, creating this kind of digital content also gave me different opportunities of distributing my artwork. For instance, Sedition, this is a platform where collectors can have digital editions of artworks, and they can exchange it, they can keep this digital collection, and they can exhibit the artworks they collected on their own displays in their homes. So this is a way to bring media art experiences inside your home and also have the authenticity like certificates for these digital collectibles. So Multiverse series became a part of Sedition. This became a different way of exhibiting my work online. And Depict, a San Francisco-based company, they produced these digital displays, digital frames, and this was another platform to showcase my work. And this was another way of distributing these digital contents. And also, while I was doing the previous projects I showed you with Obscura, they were interested in licensing these pieces. And it became a part of this really large three-dimensional LED display in MGM National Harbor in Washington. It became a permanent installation over there in this large scale display. My next artist residency was with Adobe, and this was a artist residency called Immersive Artist Residency, which later became Adobe AR Residency. I was one of the first artists in this program, alongside with Zach Lieberman and his partner Momo. And each week we had meetings, online meetings with Adobe's Airo team. Adobe Airo is a new software, release software, which was designed for artists and designers to create very practical, hands-on AR experiences without writing any code. So I was working with Airo team and giving them feedbacks from the perspective of an artist, and they were interested in what are the tools, what are the processes that an artist or a designer needs to create an AR experience. And by that feedback, they were developing their tools and trying to create a better software for designers and artists. This was a very interesting experience for me to be involved in a software development process as an artist, and I was happy to be a part of. So first, I brought in these sculptural ideas from the Multiverse series into AR space, which like I said, I was imagining these pieces for physical spaces. So AR was another way of bringing those ideas into physical. And I started to play with iPads and place these sculptures in the physical space and try to recreate my VR experiences and Dome experiences using AR this time. Along the time during the residency, I started to work with facial recognition and face tracking, and this is happening before the Snapchat filters and Instagram filters, so this was highly experimental back then in 2018. And then I really enjoyed using this kind of AR because in all of my projects, I'm always trying to bring new ways of exhibiting these kind of media experiences. I did that with VR before. I wanted to avoid the waiting line, so I created this physical installation so the experience was starting before you are in the headset. And with AR, something I wanted to do while I was playing with these iPads and experiencing AR that way, I realized, okay, we will need to secure these tablets in the exhibition space, or it's going to require an assistance. There needs to be someone assisting people who are using those tablets to secure them and guide them along the experience. But with the face tracking, I was able to just place a camera, so no additional equipment was involved, and people were able to experience this kind of AR very fast without any assistance. So this became a project called Faces on Display, and people were interacting and enlarging their presence in the space with this projection installations, and they were seeing a digital version of themselves. The interesting part of this project was observing the audiences and how they play with this, how they interact with it. And it also gave me the idea of like when people are interacting with this kind of installations behind a mask, they become much more freer, much more independent in a public environment. So it was really an interesting observation. I collaborated with the opera singer, and we had this real-time presentation and a real live performance with the use of this technology. And this was happening before, for instance, Massive Attack used their facial recognition on the live stage. So it was a really cool project. It was featured in Wired magazine. of the last projects I wanted to share is my collaboration with this New York group collective called Frequency. In 2019, I moved to New York for this, and at the time, I was interested in bringing more narrative to the immersive experience I was designing, and guided meditation experiences became an interest because in this kind of setting, we have a guide who narrates a story, gives you certain directions, a guidance, and it really reminded me how a VR or geodesic experience works, because it's a more internal experience. You close your eyes, the narrator describes you a scene, and you try to imagine that space. So I wanted to create this kind of guided meditation experience using immersive technologies. And interestingly, at the same time, I was approached by Frequency in New York, and they were starting this company with psychologists and wellness teachers and meditation teachers, and they were working on the exact same concept for geodesic domes. And then I moved there to work on this project, and it became a really interesting, powerful, immersive experience. And here's a documentation video and audience reactions from South by Southwest in Austin, where this was launched first.
I actually don't really have any words for it.
Well, I feel like a super freak. And freak, I mean frequency.
Something super powerful. I thought it was brilliant, and it's very therapeutic and was very peaceful for me.
Extremely cleansing and uncomfortable in the best way possible.
I came out super energized and joyful.
It was great to actually just kind of let go of everything.
The energy of the room started to raise, and my whole body felt so much more at ease. It was awesome.
I love the animation on the ceiling. As you let your eyes go out of focus, it really felt like you were moving and like the dome was sort of staying still, and it really allowed you to sort of get out of yourself and actually relax and rest.
I definitely tapped into like a deeper sense of self.
It made me kind of look within.
I was letting something go and creating a new me and shouting out what I wanted to, express in the world. It was awesome.
Listen to what people are saying. I think that's really important.
I walked out of there feeling incredibly connected to complete strangers.
It's about connecting with the fellow people who decide to go on the journey with you.
And when I was in New York, I also created this piece called Numenon, which was a mini retrospective piece which involved my 4 or 5 years of audiovisual work in one installation. And this was one of the highlights of New York for me. Recently, I'm more interested in photography and drone videography, and I want to create more photorealistic real-time experiences using game engines like Unreal, and have these audiovisual photorealistic experiences have more narrative structure and exhibit them in multiple platforms, such as the ones I used before. I hope you find this presentation inspiring and interesting, and thank you very much for your attention.